From 1844 until the outbreak of World War I in 1914, 3 colonies were established in the Holy Land by American citizens, driven by their religious beliefs. The American consuls at the time were responsible for addressing their needs. This is the story of the American colonies in the Holy Land. In 1853, the first group of settlers established a colony named Mount Hope on a hill a few kilometers east of Jaffa. The group was led by Clorinda Minor, a devout Christian who believed it was the duty of all Christians to prepare the land of Israel for the return of the Jews, thus hastening the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The settlers of Mount Hope, who had arrived with tremendous dreams and high hopes, struggled to survive in the cruel reality of their new life. The hostile Turkish authorities, unfriendly neighboring Bedouin tribes, and harsh weather conditions all took their toll. In 1855, Clorinda Minor contracted a serious illness and passed away. Her son Charles was appointed to lead the colony. Difficulties continued to overwhelm Mount Hope, and some of the settlers returned to the United States. One cold night, on January 11, 1858, Bedouins of the neighboring tribe attacked the colony. News of the brutal attack reached America and caused great anger. Following the outrage at Jaffa, the last of the American citizens left the colony. The compound remained deserted until the early 1940s, when Shevach School was built on the hill that had once been Mount Hope. A few years after the abandonment of Mount Hope in 1866, a group of settlers from Maine arrived in the port of Jaffa. This group was led by the charismatic preacher George Adams, who had founded his own church and newspaper, where he preached what would become his life's mission: to hasten and facilitate the return of the Jews to the Holy Land. In August 1866, the ship Nellie Chapin sailed from Maine, carrying 156 of Adams' enthusiastic followers, most of whom were farmers and craftsmen, along with their families. After 42 days at sea, they docked off the coast of Jaffa and unloaded their cargo: wooden houses ready for construction, workshop tools, farm equipment, and household items. Within a short time, while living in tents on the beach, the settlers set up a colony north of Jaffa, constructed several houses, and leased vast tracts of land where they planted their crops. Hardship and tragedy struck the Adams colony from the onset. Some died during the first week in the Holy Land, including young children. Adams and his followers struggled on despite their misfortune, but trials and tribulation lay ahead. As the months passed, the colony was losing faith in their leader. Adams, under tremendous pressure, surrendered to his tendency to drink and gamble. In 1868, the enterprise ended in bitter disappointment. Most of the families returned to Maine. George Adams traveled to England, where he disappeared without a trace. Of the wooden houses built by the Adams colony, only 3 remain standing today. Dr. Reed Holmes and Jane Holmes have devoted themselves to the restoration of these historic buildings and to bringing the American colony in Jaffa back to life. In 1881, moved by a series of tragic losses, Chicago natives Anna and Horatio Spafford led a small American contingent to Jerusalem to form a Christian utopian society known as the American Colony. In a rented house in the old city, the group quickly adapted to their new surroundings. They were warmly received by the local community and soon began philanthropic work. The community grew over the years and were joined by a group of the Swedish Evangelical Church in July 1896. The colony, now numbering 150, moved to the large house of a wealthy Arab landowner outside the city walls. In 1898, the American cemetery on Mount Zion was sold to the Germans through the mediation of the council at the time, Sella Merrill, who assured them that they would receive the land clear of any graves. A few years later, in 1905, the clearing of the cemetery was carried out without informing the American colony. As a result of this scandal, Selah Merrill was dismissed from his post as consul. Inner tensions within the American colony led to the final demise of this utopian Christian community in the 1950s. Since then, the second home of the American colony has functioned as a hotel, one of the most famous and beautiful in the Middle East. The second half of the 19th century marked the beginning of a continuous American presence in what would become the State of Israel.